So the last problem on the chirp, jump, scatter was the height and shoe size. So I'm going to go through this example in this video, and hopefully this will help with the regression that you see. So if you go to that example. So right now my list is probably full. So in order to clear the list, remember we go to Stat, Clear List, Enter, and then we have to select what list we want to clear. So we want to select list 1, and then second stat, list 2. Whoops. So if you forget to put a comma in between there, you could scroll back and then see above delete, it says INS. That's what insert means. So second, insert a comma in between. So you don't have to keep going back and forth. So enter, done. Now I want to go to my list. So we're going to go to Stat. Number 1 is Edit, Enter, and we have these 2 lists there. So I'm just going to fill in the first column, and you can follow if you need to. Okay. And second list. Okay, so making sure that you filled it in correctly, you should have the same number of elements in each column. So now I want to see the scatter plot. So if I go to, I have to clear my graph, otherwise those lines will show up on my graph. So if you hit the Y equals button, I'm going to delete and delete, so everything's all clear here. So now I want to go to Zoom and go to Zoom 9. You can actually hit 9, which is the Zoom stat, and then there's your scatter plot. Okay. So now we want to do a linear regression for this. And how we do that, we're going to go and hit quit. So if you see I'm outlining quit, it's next to the second button. Second, quit, and now we're on the screen. So we go to Stat, shift over and go to Calc, and then shift down to linear regression, AX plus B, and hit enter. So we want our first list to be our input, our second list to be our output. And if we scroll down to store regression equation, remember in our Y1 it was empty. So we want to hit theirs, vars, go over to the Y vars and say function, I want to store this as function 1. And then calculate. And now it's important that you write down this information. So if I have y equals 0.59x minus 30.2, and the r value, the correlation of determination or correlation coefficient, is 0.9175. So that means it's about 91.7 or 91.8% accurate. So now we want to see what this looks like in our data. And if we go to the Y equals button, notice how it's already there for you. So when we did store regression equation, it actually just pastes it there for you so you don't have to actually type it in, which is nice. So now if we go to graph, we can see our line shown. So that's the regression equation. And I want you all to write down, you have to make sure that you're writing down the equation so that now in this problem, if we wanted to predict the shoe size for a person who is 75 inches tall, we can go back to our calculation screen. So second, quit. And remember we stored it as Y1, so we hit the vars, Y vars function, And in y1, we want to use the parentheses and say y of 75 equals, so the shoe size would be a 13.79, so probably would round up to a size 14 shoe. And then for that last bullet point on that page, it says using the regression equation you found, predict the height of a person who has a shoe size of 5. That you're going to have to do algebraically and say 5 equals 0.59x minus 30.2, which is your regression equation, and you're going to have to solve for x. So that's a bit more work that you'll have to do on paper, but notice how if you wanted to plug in some values here, you'd be able to see that. And so that's how we do linear regression in our calculator.